Hello, everyone. Greetings and salutations. Welcome back to another episode of the Back of the Pack podcast. I am your host, Kyle Walker. Thank you for joining us as always. Hey, as we all know at this point, I am currently in Boston for the marathon. Dun, dun, dun. So with that being said, we're going to focus on that next week. I will be back from my trip. I'll tell you all about it. But for right now, for the Sunday while I am out of town, we sat down and we talked to our friends over at St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital. They are the charity benefit partner of the KC Hustle Run coming up on September 17th of 2023. 5K, 10K, the second race in the Heartland 30K series. You guys know the drill. If you haven't signed up yet, you get over to www.kchustlerun.com. Get yourself signed up for the 5K or the 10K. If you can't run a 5K or 10K or have no desire to do so, that's fine. We still need volunteers. We're going to need volunteers for race day. You can work a water station. You can work registration. You can work as a course monitor. We're going to need about 30 volunteers to help us pull this race off. So if you want to do that, then do that. That would be super great. But other than that, so enough about that, shall we say. Enough about the KC Hustle Run. That's coming up, and we're going to talk about it at great lengths, trust me. But for right now, sit back, relax, and listen to the amazing things that are happening with St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital here in Kansas City, around the country, and yes, even around the world. So we're going to kick it to our interview. Please enjoy. Okay, joining us today are our two buddies over at St. Jude's. They're helping us with the KC Hustle Run, and honestly, we're doing the whole run for them. We have joining us Krista and David. Everyone, thank you so much for coming on the podcast this week.
It is absolutely our pleasure to be a part of this.
Now, I wanted to get a little backstory on each of you before we jump into St. Jude. So just tell us a little bit about yourself and really what led you to working with and for St. Jude's. And ladies first, Krista, take it away.
Dang it. I was going to push it to David first to answer that question. But very nice of you. Yeah, happy to be here. My name's Krista Moon. I'm a development specialist for LSAC St. Jude here in Kansas City. I'm pretty new to the position, actually, and I have David to thank for that, for bringing me aboard this small and mighty team here. But I'm just excited to work with you all on the KC Hustle Run to help build that awareness in Kansas City of, that St. Jude, we are here. We have a presence locally as well as globally, and just excited to share that knowledge and information with everybody.
Awesome. And we'll kick it over. David?
Oh, absolutely. And I have the pleasure of serving as the area executive director here for our Mid-America area, which covers Kansas City, Kansas, and Nebraska. And truly, when I say it's a pleasure, it really is. It's an honor. My St. Jude story working for LSAC began probably about a year ago this time. I had a professional acquaintance reach out to me to see if I'd want to go to coffee. And of course, when somebody in this role reaches out for coffee, you immediately think fundraising, philanthropy. It's a donor call. Like many people, I have my own journey, my own family's journey with cancer, specifically pediatric cancer. A dear cousin of mine passed away from acute lymphoblastic leukemia when he was 15 and I was 13. And I think that's at an age where things start to become just a little bit more real in the world, generally speaking. And that was a moment that really impacted me. So when she reached out, I jumped at the call to be involved in an organization like St. Jude that really needs no introduction from a mission and organizational standpoint. And when she reached out and we got to coffee, she said, well, I'm leaving this role and I think you'd be fantastic at it, which threw me for a loop as far as, you go expecting to be asked for something and not necessarily an employment opportunity, but truly had an opportunity to meet and visit with the people that were here, spoke with a vision about where we've been as an organization, but also where we can go. And it has been really the most professionally fulfilling 10 months of my life, because it's professional, but it's also personal. I have a 4 and a 2-year-old, both girls, and you cannot help but see the work that we do in them. We were in Memphis last week visiting the hospital, and you see those patients and you see them with their parents and you know the things they're going through. And it's impossible to separate the personal from the professionals. But that's also what I love, because you have an opportunity to directly impact those families. And I always say our mission is local because in 2 ways, we have a lot of patient families from this area that are being treated at St. Jude or have been. I just got back from a coffee with one of them who has an incredible story herself. And then the research component of it as well. And I'm sure I'm kind of jumping questions here, but you're asking about why and how I started here. But because we freely share research, it impacts everybody that is going to be treated with pediatric cancer. And I've said this before, we kind of start at the beginning, but I hope the end for me looks at a place where there's no longer a need for LSAC, where we don't have to go and raise money for pediatric cancer because we've cured it. And there's so many genomes and subgenomes of types of cancer. But I always say this, that I want to be here at St. Jude because I truly believe that not if, but when pediatric cancer is cured, it's going to happen at St. Jude.
Yep. I would say you were probably correct on that from everything that I understand. So let's dive into that. Tell us about St. Jude's, because in my mind, they are at the tip top of the pyramid for pediatric cancer research. But because they're not here locally, the big hospital is, I believe, in Memphis, correct? Isn't that where you were just at?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay, so because there's not brick and mortar here, maybe there are folks in this particular area who are a little unfamiliar. I'm sure everyone's heard, but maybe a little unfamiliar. So tell us about that. Break down the Memphis establishment and then what you're doing here and just how that comes together overall under the banner of St. Jude's, Children's Research Hospital.
Yeah, absolutely. So the amazing thing about St. Jude, what really I feel makes this different, is that St. Jude was started with this idea of charity. So Danny Thomas, our founder, really wanted any child, no matter their ability to pay, race, creed, ethnicity, to be able to be treated if they were dealt with a catastrophic disease. So a lot of people always ask, why in Memphis, Tennessee, of all the places in the United States, was the hospital founded there? So if you think back when we were founded in the early 1960s, there was no more segregated place or no more idea of this divide between two worlds than Memphis, Tennessee. And so Danny Thomas had made a statement by putting the hospital there and saying, I'm going to put this world-class hospital here in the middle of the segregated South as a beacon and as a reason to show that it doesn't matter. Cancer doesn't care. A catastrophic disease doesn't care whether you're green, blue, purple, black, white, brown. And that's why we're in Memphis. It was this idea of, once again, no child should die in the dawn of life, regardless of their ability to pay or creed, ethnicity, or race. And that's why we're in Memphis. But to your point, St. Jude is known for treating the hardest, the rarest, the most surgically difficult to intervene. And that's where we only have about 78 beds in Memphis, inpatient beds. We treat about 8,500 patients and outpatients a year. What I love about St. Jude, because no family has ever receives a bill. And when I say never receives a bill, never, for food, travel, housing, treatment, care, anything, it's because we have built an infrastructure around the hospital that allows them to do that. So we have living facilities that are there. We have patients that stay there for up to a year, if not longer, to be able to stay with their family. And as I mentioned, as the father of two young children, I love any location in the United States that has a strong pediatric hospital in their area. I believe strongly, and the research will tell you that if the ability is there for a child to be treated locally, that's always going to be the preference. But I thank God every day that St. Jude is there for the reason that it does treat the hardest and the rarest. And it really is a place where people can go to have hope. I'll give you a concrete example of that. Mm-hmm. So St. Jude is the only place in America that has a proton therapy center specifically dedicated for pediatric children, for pediatric cancer.
Okay.
So if you think about radiation is something that is bad, generally speaking, but it kills tumor cells, but it also kills everything else around it. Proton therapy is more like if a radiation treatment has in the past been like a shotgun, a proton therapy is like a pencil that you can determine the depth, width of that exact tumor and not hurt the surrounding tissue around it. For us, that treatment allows to be more precise, more appropriate outcomes coming out of that for a more idea of a robust life post-treatment versus the old approaches of that. So that's where St. Jude is really moving the needle in those things as well. We understand that strong children's hospitals are an essential part of the network that we have. But that's really where I think for us, this is why we have staff here locally, because we have such a robust amount of patients, both in Kansas and Missouri. So between the two, as of last year, we had roughly 450 patients, active patients within treatment at St. Jude.
Oh, wow.
They're really all around us. And because of their particular battles or their particular disease state or type. They're not going to be people that are going to be always, you're going to notice. So I reiterate two reasons that and our team knows this, what our vision is for this area is that there are patient families here locally that are being affected and being given hope by St. Jude. There's also the research component that because St. Jude freely shares their research, that's why I go back to this idea that if cancer is going to be cured, it's going to start at St. Jude because we love this idea of collaboration. We don't try to do anything other than try to advance the knowledge that researchers have around the world with the advancements that we're making at St. Jude with the resources that we're investing in there. So really it's those two pieces. It's, we started in Memphis and this idea that no child you shouldn't have to worry about paying for pediatric cancer. I mean, just imagine that diagnosis, getting that phone call. And then if your immediate worry has to go, how am I going to pay for this? The added level of stress that a family incurs because of that shouldn't have to be there. And so that's the first component of it, is that St. Jude is there as a backstop to treat the hardest and the rarest and provide hope in the most dire of circumstances. But then truly, this idea of research, there is not enough federal funds flowing into pediatric research. It's this idea of trickle down, meaning that there's trickle down from adult oncology research that'll hit pediatrics. Pediatrics is so different as far as the different subtypes and genomes that go on, from everything from acute lymphoblastic leukemia, which is the most common form of childhood cancer, to solid cell tumors. There's so many different things that can be treated. But at the end of the day, for us, it's the ability that we have. I always say this about St. Jude, and if there's one thing to remember, there's great charities, there's great hospitals, and there's great research institutions. And St. Jude really is all three of those things.
Yep, that's for sure. I don't want to get you in any trouble, but can you speak a little bit more to that funding? And here's a tiny backstory on that. We did an episode last year with a childhood cancer group here locally, and they told me that 4% of funding goes to pediatric cancer research. Is that about correct? If you lump all the cancer funding together, only 4%? Roughly? Yeah,
I think that's pretty roughly about that. It's in the single digit percentages.
So I flipped my lid when I heard that. It's out there on the podcast for everyone to listen to. I had a mild hissy fit, but I would love your opinion. Why in the world is it so small? And again, without getting you in any trouble.
I know one thing that jumps in my head, I'm sure you would agree, David, is, it cost us at St. Jude billions of dollars to keep the hospital running, to keep our families, to take care of them, and for the treatments that the children need at the time. Mm-hmm. So, that takes a huge portion. Obviously, David's better at the budgets than I am, but it's, that's what jumps into my head. The fact that I know it's about $425,000 average per child for treatment for cancer.
Oh my goodness.
And that's when you add that, and then you use the numbers that David's talking about with, 400 some here, 8,000 plus a year, that really adds up. And, that's our main focus. That's our priority, but we're never losing sight, obviously, of the research. But David, did you have time to think of that 4% and your thoughts on that?
And everyone, I blindsided them with this question. I'm just letting you know, they were not ready for this one.
Pediatric cancer is so interesting. In adult cancer, there's a lot of different environmental, a lot of different socioeconomic reasons for cancer appearing. And what I've learned about pediatric cancer is that oftentimes there is just not a source for why it appears. And I think that's what's always amazing to me, beyond the economics behind it, is that everybody that has been a patient or affiliated with St. Jude has a St. Jude story as to how it starts. And it's either you were giving your child a bath and you saw bruises, or your child kept complaining about leg pain and it ended up not being growing pains. It was osteosarcoma that starts this journey. So I think from a research standpoint, it's incredibly difficult to understand of all the patient population piece of it, and not to dive more into the actual global piece of it, but it's also harder to track as well. Uh-huh. So if you think about it from a global perspective, we like to say, 4 out of 5 children that are diagnosed with the most common form of cancer, they're going to survive, 4 to 5. Okay. In the developing world, that statistic is reversed. So 1 out of 5.
Oh my.
So we don't necessarily have a great wide swath of sample size to do great research on this, right? There's less of a diagnosis apparatus to treat and to diagnose first primarily childhood cancer. So I think that's a piece of it. Once again, I think it goes back to this idea of treating and understanding the different types of genomes that are specific to pediatric cancer. So that's a very multifaceted question, everything from pharmaceuticals to treatment protocols to research. But I do know that for us, it's an incredibly important piece of our funding and how we continually to try to move the needle on the research component of that.
Okay. I mean, again, reiterate, I blindsided them with this. Just want everyone to know that. All right. So let's continue on
our
with
toes, Kyle. Thanks.
Yeah, sorry. I do that
Always.
Sometimes. We'll go away from the 4% funding. Let's say people want to help. Maybe we want to give directly to St. Jude so that it doesn't go through the overall cancer funding. Like, this is where we want it to go. What's the best way that people can help St. Jude's?
Gosh, it's such a loaded question because I feel like there's just so many different ways for people.
I'm glad that there are so many different ways.
There's so many different ways. The basic is you can go to stjude.org and you can donate always. Finding your local St. Jude office or chapter and seeing what opportunities are there to volunteer at an event or running in a race and becoming a St. Jude hero, which I could go on for days, Kyle, and I'm sure you'd love to hear about it. It's one of our programs that it happens nationwide. Mm-hmm. People run for a cause and it's amazing. It's a wonderful thing because they're not only training for their race, but they're fundraising at the same time, which again makes them a hero. And then there's, you go back to research and talking about that subject. That is really a passionate area for a lot of people that we know. And, we work with them to make sure that they are able to direct their funds towards specific research if that's something that they're passionate about. So there's just so many ways to get involved, and we try to offer something for everybody so that they can be involved at the level that they're comfortable with. Like I said, whether it's running, whether it's donating a few dollars if they can, or monthly, or just volunteering their time and using their own platforms to share that messaging, kind of like what you're doing.
Yep.
Just getting involved and asking us to be on this podcast, asking us to be a charity partner for your run. It's endless. There's so many opportunities.
She said it perfectly. I would just say it sounds those that are listening to the podcast are obviously an active group, and I don't think they do things just to do them. I don't think if somebody were going to give, that would be the end of their involvement with St. Jude. And certainly if that is, that's great. We'll always take those donations. But I think Krista really outlined some great ways to get really engaged. I always say the best, if you really, really want to have an impact on what we do from the perspective of this, probably your audience, is to get involved either through the St. Jude Walk Run locally or become a St. Jude hero. Mm-hmm. and run and train and go through those Sufferfest on behalf of the kids and families of St. Jude. And then if you're able, go run in Memphis. We have a phenomenal marathon weekend in Memphis that really allows you to see the depth and breadth of the impact of those efforts where, I could describe it, but honestly, Kyle, it's something that I'll just put it this way, part of the race runs through the hospital. Mm-hmm. And there's not a shortage of patient families that are out there cheering you on. And that is an incredibly emotional experience for those that are training for that. So,
and that marathon is, I think they're nominated to be one of the top marathons in the state of Tennessee, I believe. So okay. It's legit. It's a big one for sure for the city of Memphis.
I've definitely already done my research on that race. December 2nd, I believe, is race day. And yes, I have every intention of being there.
Love it. Yeah. We can't wait to have you in Memphis. We can't wait to show you around.
And there's a half, there's even like a 10K.
Don't forget about the smaller, but so not any less important races. Yeah.
Right. I might see if I can get some of my fellow Back of the Pack podcast people down there and they can run whatever distance they want. But yeah, I intend on tackling the full marathon down there. And yes. So for the Casey Hustle Run, our race director, his name is William. And William, he always says that, if you think about these kids who are fighting this stuff, then running a race is nothing. Like, you think about what they're going through, running a marathon is nothing. I don't know pain running a marathon compared to what these kids and these families are going through. So I'm going to Memphis to run that marathon in December. And yeah, I can't wait. It's one I'm definitely looking forward to.
Love it. We can't wait to have you. It's a great weekend.
Yeah.
So, and if anyone can't, they can always do it virtually.
Oh, so, okay. Well, there you go.
Yes.
Yeah, virtual is good. I know some people still are a little leery about travel at times, but yeah, virtual options are always good. And then for our Casey Hustle Run, just again, along the lines of donations and funding, and producer Katie wanted to be here, but she has been under the weather with pneumonia for like a week now. So she was not able to join us, but she wanted to make sure I told everyone that if you go to CaseyHustleRun.com, you'll see a donation button with a red heart next to it. And that takes you to the official St. Jude's donation page. So it doesn't go through anyone. It goes straight to St. Jude's if anyone just wants to donate. So again, trying to give avenues for people to help.
Yeah, we appreciate you guys sharing that and for all that you're doing for the Casey Hustle Run race to bring us along for the ride and be a part of the family. So we definitely feel that way. And we're super appreciative and excited to share this message of St. Jude with everyone because, you know, all this stuff, this is why I had to have David on the call because again, I'm still learning, but you know, coming into this role, I only knew, you know, Marlo Thomas's commercials, or I only knew, you know, that just, oh yeah, no one gets a bill. That's like their thing, but it's so much more than that. And it's hard to pack it all into like a quick elevator pitch of everything we do. But we're just hoping to share the message with more people in Kansas City because we love this community and it's a great message to share. So definitely one of my personal missions because I was one of those people that was like, oh, I only knew this or I only knew that. And it's so much more. So.
Oh, absolutely. So again, okay, so about the Kansas City area here locally, who do you guys work with here locally? I know there's a few hospitals that technically have St. Jude's families there. Are you able to say who you work with in this particular area?
We can't really say it from the referring standpoint, just because we keep that between the patients and their families. But for us, it goes back to this idea. The referring piece of it is just such a small component of it. It really goes back, and I think as Krista will attest to, the research that is going on at St. Jude. And that's where that's what I love about our mission is because when you donate and you give your time, your resources, anything that you provide of yourself back to St. Jude is going back to this idea of current patients and families. You're supporting them in their fight and their journey, but then also you're supporting the future of pediatric research and how it's going to change the world. And I truly, for those that are going to be a part of the event in September and that are listening that become involved in St. Jude, it's going to be something, and I truly believe this in my heart, that in 2, 3, 4, 5 years, when we make these amazing breakthroughs and they see them on the news that St. Jude has done this in collaboration with one of the phenomenal research institutions we have our collaborators with around the world and country, that they take pride in the fact that they made that happen. And, you know, there was and I'll tell you my own personal story I've been with St. Jude a little bit over a year, and St. Jude was such an important part of moving hundreds and thousands of patients and their families from Ukraine to around the world. As far as getting them out of a war zone and getting them affiliated in one of our affiliated clinics around the world, or even bringing them back to Memphis. And there was this really beautiful piece that was aired on 60 Minutes about it. And gosh, I mean, truly, it was an emotional experience for me because I felt such a kinship to our mission because I felt I was a part of that. And granted, a very small part of it, but the idea that you're part of this thing larger than yourself that's going to change and is changing the world is such a cool feeling. And whether you do that from an Alstec employee like myself or Krista, who live and breathe this every day, or if you do that, somebody that's running to raise funds for St. Jude, it's something that you should be able to take pride in. So that's why I think this idea of the Heroes program, as well as that's why I love when Krista told me about the opportunity to partner with your wonderful organization, Kyle. It was a no-brainer because I know that as somebody that doesn't run but bikes a whole heck of a lot, some of us that like that internal suffering, it's something that doing it for a reason is we all have our own intrinsic reasons. But if you can add on top of that, helping to cure pediatric cancer, I mean, gosh, what better way to put forth your efforts and put one foot in front of the other?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, my running journey is about 13 years long, and it started for one reason, but I can definitely say in the last year, it's kind of switched over to another one as this podcast has now been doing everything it can to partner with children's charities especially surrounding cancer research and whatnot. So yeah, it's really kind of changed how I've looked at a lot of my runs, and now I'm going out of my way to find runs that benefit, particular organizations, which again is why I can't wait to go to Memphis, because more than happy to, fundraise and put my registration dollar towards something so wonderful. So yeah, I think I know a lot of people actually who are along the same lines where this is kind of their focus and this is why they run. And it really has become a really beautiful thing, at least in my world.
Yeah, it is beautiful. And I mean, our fitness team has said it. It's, we have charity bibs for large races, which is amazing. There's so many other great charities and organizations out there that people can do that for. That it's really, I don't know if it's like a post-COVID thing or, something, but they have said that numbers everywhere are just like spiking. More people are wanting to run, for charities in these large, races. And I just think that's really cool. I think that's amazing. So that people want to dedicate that kind of time and challenge. And David, you said you're not around. I'm pretty sure you said that you might run at some point in Memphis.
If I was going to do it anywhere, I promise you,
Memphis.
I will be in Memphis. I'm the guy that will go and bike 100+ miles. I've done all the gravel races, done all the races, but man, that's why I'm so in awe of this group and those that run and put forth that effort to do so. Because first and foremost, I'm not a huge runner, but at the same time, it's already hard enough to go and train for something. And to do that and ask friends and family and to raise money on top of it, it's just a really cool thing. And it just speaks to the people that do that. And whether you're going as far to enter a St. Jude Hero for racing, we have bibs to Berlin and London and all these other fantastic races. Or if it's simply just running and becoming more aware of what we're doing, I'm always in awe and grateful for people that do that, because it's such a huge part of raising funds and also just awareness for what we do as well. You'll see the St. Jude baby and people wearing that during marathons, and you'll see it. And it's just that awareness as well brings us a lot of joy to see that.
Absolutely. We were just at a running expo last week and had our sign up that has the St. Jude's logo on it. Anyone who asked us about our race, when we said, this benefits St. Jude, everyone, they light up. They know who we're talking about. They know that this is legit. So it's great to see the people who want to help. And I know that everyone's signing up for this race. They're not doing it just because there's a race now with my face on it, which is frightening enough. They're doing this to help St. Jude's.
And you guys have cool medals. I don't know if you've released that to everybody.
Not
listeners
yet.
I got the sneak preview of the medal from Katie, and I must say, I'm a little jealous. I wish I could run. And Kyle knows this. I'm going to be out of town that weekend. My brother decided he needed to get married that weekend. So to get the medal.
Don't forget, we're virtual. There is a virtual.
That's true.
That's
true. I could run it from St. Louis and still get my medal.
That's true. Get your medal and your beanie, because we're doing beanies instead of shirts. So the shirts will be available to purchase, but we're doing beanies as the giveaway. So
it's a great pre-wedding activity. Get a little run, get the energy out.
I'll be that person that everyone hates before because I made the whole family run a 5K.
Yep, exactly. Well, and then it just justifies whatever you eat and drink for the rest of the day.
Exactly. Yep. That's basically why I bike, just to justify everything else I do.
Yeah.
All right, sold. I'm done. I'll be signing up virtually as soon as we're done, Kyle.
Perfect.
Got to get that medal.
That's right. It is going to be a cool medal just for everyone listening. All right. Well, if you can believe it, we're already kind of towards the end of the program. Again, I want to thank you guys both for coming on. Final words, if you've got them, throw them out at the people. Now, we will have St. Jude's back on the show before the race. And that's probably where we're going to talk a little bit more about the actual event in September 17th. We'll talk a little bit about Marathon Weekend in Memphis. And then the walk that you guys have here in town, which is also in September. We're going to talk about that as well. So just for this particular episode, our introduction to St. Jude's, if you guys have any parting thoughts, throw them at me.
Yeah, I would just go back to this idea that St. Jude was founded on the multitude of people that give back to us. Our founder had a saying that he would rather receive $1 from 1 million people than $1 million from one. And our average gift size, believe it or not, is like $56, Kyle. It's a pretty an amount where everybody does what they do, and every single one of those dollars makes a difference for a patient family that are going through treatment right now. So I know a lot of times we hear, especially today, people making large $1 million, $1 billion gifts, And that's not what true philanthropy is about. I've been in fundraising my entire career. It is truly doing what you can with what you have in the moment that you're in. And if that means putting one foot in front of the other and just joining this race, and that's what it is, phenomenal. If you want to go run the London or Berlin marathons on behalf of St. Jude and raise $10,000, phenomenal. But it's truly doing what you can to help us defeat all the terrible diseases that affect children, and especially pediatric cancer. But more than anything else, just expressing gratitude for you and your listeners for hearing us for the last half hour and letting us tell you a little bit more about St. Jude.
Ditto. I mean, yeah, just a huge thank you to you, Kyle and Katie, for coming to us with this opportunity. We're just honored to be a part of it and be, part of a race that has such a cool medal and a beanie giveaway. I think it's just absolutely amazing. So we just appreciate you giving us the opportunity to share this with everyone.
Oh, no, this is our pleasure. We're happy to do anything and everything that we can to help out. And I'm getting so excited for the race in September. It's still forever away, but man, we're excited.
It's going to be a packed month. It's going to be so fun. It's going to be really great.
Yep, that it is. All right. Well, thank you so much to Krista and David for coming on from St. Jude's. And again, we're going to hear from them again as we get closer to the race. But thank you both so very much for your time.
Thank you, Kyle.
Thank you, Kyle. We appreciate it.
You bet. Again, a huge thanks for them to come on to the show and talk about St. Jude's with us. I am so excited to work with them. They are so wonderful, and they've been nothing but great to this small little podcast, just doing the best that we can. It is really awesome to work with them. So thank you for your time. Thank you for joining us. It was wonderful. They're going to be back on, and we're going to keep talking as we keep going through the year and heading off to the KC Hustle Run. So that's going to do it for this week's episode of the Back of the Pack podcast. I am your host, Kyle Walker. This show is brought to you by OKKC Sports, and it's produced by Katie O'Neill. We'll be back next week to talk everything Boston Marathon, so I hope you're ready for that. We also have the Garmin Land of Oz half marathon coming up. And then, if you can believe it, we'll be heading out of April and into May as this running season just keeps chugging along. So again, thank you, St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital. Thank you so very much. We can't wait to keep working with you. And for all you wonderful listeners, get signed up for the race, and we'll see you next week.